I'm happy to see you out again tonight. All right, so this evening, as I said, we're going to have a short presentation, a short video first on the life of Freddie Munnings, and so that'll give you the kickoff, and that'll give you an overview of his life. And then, of course, we're going to have our panelists hone in on different areas of his life. Duke Errol will start off the conversation, and he will talk about how he met Freddie Munnings, and Freddie Munnings in the old days, and of course a part of the nightclub era. Okay? And then we'll have Freddie Munnings talk about Freddie Munnings Sr. as a civic activist, and he'll add some other things as well. Raphael Munnings will talk about his entrepreneurship and anything else that they forget, and I will fill in the blanks. And of course we'll have the time for questions and answers, but we'd like you to hold those questions until all of the panelists have presented. Vera Chase has written a poem, and she will come and present that poem. She wrote that poem long before I knew her, so it wasn't as though she just wrote it because she knows me. But I do appreciate her, and I do appreciate all of you. I apologize a little bit for starting late, but I know that some people had to park and walk, and we know that we wanted people to get seated before we start, because we don't want you to miss any of this. About the Bahamas Historical Society. There are restrooms down the hall, second door on the right or left. Second door on the right or left. If you can't find, like if we run out of paper or something, please let somebody know who's at the front desk, because I think there's enough there, but it's a pretty good crowd. So we do want to make you comfortable and to make you feel at home. The Bahamas Historical Society is funded by membership dues, fundraisers, donations, and we have a donation box at the front for anybody who feels like that tonight. And this evening we are selling cold water for $1 a bottle. I think there's even some hot if you want it hot. I mean some room temperature. So if you want to buy some water, just see one of the ladies or raise your hand. They could bring some water to you. We do want you to feel cool. So without further ado, I'm going to talk a little bit about Freddie Munnings Sr. Oh, okay. And then we're going to ask Ray to show. And then we'll ask Ray to show it's about 15 minutes of the presentation. Okay, so I'd like to also mention that the Bahamas Historical Society is calling for papers for its 2015 journal. We have the 2014 one here, so if you're not a member and you haven't purchased any yet, you can purchase those tonight. Also, we have the history of the Bahamas in pictures, and we certainly have the two people here who are responsible for this. This is a product of the museum. We have Mr. Ron Lightbourne and Mr. Jim Lawler, and they could wave because they really did a fantastic job. They've taken these two from the history of the Bahamas, and they put them into a whole book. And children love this because it's in that same format. So those, as I say, you can see the ladies at the desk for that. We're also selling bundles of journals. We have journals from 1979. The Bahamas Historical Society started in 1959. And so the journal started being printed in 1979. And so we're selling bundles of journals. We have two packages. One from 1979 to 2008, and one from 1979 to 2014. So the short package is for $120 a bundle. The long package is $200 a bundle. Excellent, excellent pieces of history, bits of history you won't find in most other places. So we ask you, if you'd like to be interested in that, you can let us know. We'll surely make sure that you get them. Okay, let's start on Freddie Munnings Sr. Frederick Albert Munnings Sr., OBE. As I say, he was born in Puerto Andros, and he left there at the tender age around 4 or 5 years old. Came to the Bahamas, came to New Providence, and in the 1926 hurricane, his father got killed. His mother had 10 children, so you can imagine the struggle that she had raising all the other children. 8 of them lived, and so she had a struggle raising them. But Daddy said when he was younger that his mother used to take him washing because she couldn't read or write, but she was very intelligent. She had mother's wit and good common sense. But she took in washing, and what they did was they made box carts, and they would take the box carts to the hotels, pick up the sheets or tablecloths and so forth, bring them back to her. She would wash them, starch them, iron them, and send them back to the hotel in the boxcar. And so they helped out tremendously. And my father was also a great stutterer. He said he could hardly get out any words, and people used to tease him so much. But when he sang, he didn't stutter. I don't know how many of you saw the King's Speech. Obviously that was the same problem. Sing it and you can get it out better. And he said he had a speech impediment. And so many times he was shy to talk. But there was a gentleman Mr. Al Johnson, he was a good friend of Daddy's, and sometimes he went with them to practice and rehearsal. One night the main singer who was supposed to sing on ZNS didn't show up. And Mr. Johnson said, "Go ahead, Freddie, you sing, because you can sing." And he said he was so petrified, but he did sing, and the whole Bahamas heard him, whoever the ZNS reached at that time. And of course, from that time on, he was being booked at parties and small functions, and that's how he got his start. And of course, I will leave the rest. I wouldn't take too much of Duke's story, and of course, this other story that's coming up. So we'll leave you there with that beginning, and then we will start the video presentation. Which one? Just this slide? Yeah. Just this one.
Munnings, OBE, was born on the 21st of October 1921 at Pure Gold, Andrea, the youngest son of John Ralph Munnings and his wife, Mary Ellen Douglas Munnings. Following the death of his father in the hurricane of 1926, Freddie migrated with his family to Nassau, where he was destined to grow into a tall, astonishingly handsome young man of impeccable manners and charismatic charm. Although his matinee idol aura alone seemed to spell a future for him in show business, it was the immensity of his talent, far more than his looks, that would lift him to fame and into legend. Freddie's musical gift was extraordinary, as dazzling for its diversity as for its depth. Master of the clarinet and saxophone, accomplished jazz pianist, inspired composer and conductor, brilliantly innovative arranger and songwriter. Freddie's musical persona was the sum of all these many diverse parts, crowned by a voice made of velvet and a stage presence that captivated audiences in a way that no other Bahamian entertainer before or since has been able to do. His career in business began in earnest at the Zag Club. Later he moved on to the Silver Slipper, where he and Freddie Munnings' orchestra played to adoring crowds throughout a lengthy engagement. But these early successes notwithstanding, Freddie still harbored a yearning to consolidate his mastery of music through formal study. And so it was that in the early 50s, he went on sabbatical to Boston, where he immersed himself in the study of musical theory and composition at the famed New England Conservatory of Music. Not long after his return to Nassau, his genius now in full flower, Freddie would lay the cornerstone for his place in history at a spot on Nassau Street whose marquee proclaimed to be the Cat and Fiddle. It was here, from 1955 until the late 1960s, that FM would rule supreme over the entertainment industry and the popular culture of music in the Bahamas. With its star-studded bookings of the biggest entertainers in the Western world, its nightly explosions of native culture, and its hypnotic atmosphere of romantic escape from the crushing burdens of daily life, the Cat and Fiddle was at once the pride of the over-the-hill and its economic center of gravity. But far more than this, in an age of racial separatism, Freddie Munnings' Cat and Fiddle was for black Bahamians everywhere, the crown jewel of social life in the Bahamas and a glittering symbol of the conquering power of grand-scale ambition. It was no accident then that throughout his career in entertainment, Freddie was to remain deeply conscious of a larger duty to his people. Imbued as he was with a passionate concern for social justice and an abiding sense of ethnic pride, he had played a pioneering role in the civil rights movement that came to the fore in the late 1940s. Later, he would serve courageously on the front lines both in the campaign to break down racial discrimination in public places and in the larger struggle for majority rule. Freddie's involvement in the life of his country would also be reflected in many other diverse ways. He was a charter member of the Kiwanis organization in the Bahamas and a founding father of the Bahamas Musicians and Entertainers Union. He was also, at the height of his fame, an outstandingly successful entrepreneur who used his wealth generously to help others get their start in business or to get ahead in education through the scholarships he donated more often than not, anonymously. Freddie's immense and varied contributions to the social and cultural development of the Bahamas were officially recognized in 1977 when he was made an Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, OBE, and personally invested by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II during her visit to Nassau that year. Long after Freddie's career in professional entertainment and civic affairs had come to a close, he was still to be found giving freely and generously of his time and talents, whether to students interested in the social and political struggles of an earlier time, or to up-and-coming musicians in search of help with a piece of music they were struggling to compose, or to some aspiring entertainer, perhaps in need of moral support for some approaching concert. He had by this time become the elder statesman of Bahamian music, and to all who made their way to Collins Avenue to learn at the feet of the master, his door was always open. The material riches that once upon a time had provided sustenance for hundreds of Bahamians have long since vanished. The wealth of his talent and the generosity of his heart will endure undiminished to the end of his days. Amidst all his success, his trials and tribulations, Freddie considered himself richly blessed to have at his side the quiet, gentle lady whom he had wed on the 3rd of September, 1947, and who, for the 48 years that followed, was to shower him each day with the devotion of a lifetime. Fittingly, it was she, his ever-loyal and loving wife, Winifred, who at the end, amidst their children, would sit beside him, holding his hand as his soul slipped peacefully away to journey across Jordan. Freddie Munnings was a kind and wonderful human being who in his time brought untold happiness into the hearts of thousands, both far and near, through the splendor and magic of his music. In so doing, he defined the popular culture of an entire generation. This is his legacy. It has enriched us beyond measure.
It always interests me how life takes these funny twists and turns, almost like a Dickensian novel life is. I've known about the great Freddie Munnings for such a long time. From the time I was a child, I grew up in the Collins Avenue neighborhood where he was a real hero in that neighborhood. And unfortunately, I was too young to go to Cat and Fiddle at the time, so I always thought that I'd grow up and be able to go to Cat and Fiddle, but of course it wasn't around by the time I got there. But I'd heard all the stories about the Ghana room. And of course later, as I became an adult, I used to spend a lot of days sitting down talking about the old days with Freddie Munnings, and I always appreciated that, his historical knowledge and his role in bringing about social and political change in the Bahamas. And so it was a real pleasure and honor then to have come into contact with Freddie Munnings yet again, even posthumously, with being the representative for the Fox Hill constituency and finding the Freddie Munnings Manor development in the Fox Hill constituency. And it was a pleasure to be there, to see the family. It was like a whole reunion for that Collins Avenue area. And of course Collins Avenue itself has changed, and I'm a kind of a nostalgia buff anyway, and I'm quite happy that Freddie Munnings is in Fox Hill, and I look forward to it being strengthened and developing, and I hope that the families there will tell their children who Freddie Munnings was and what he means in the history of this country. And so what I'd like to do is congratulate Arawak Homes, its chairman Franklin Wilson, and its board of directors for this important decision. It sends a signal out to the people of the country that we know who our heroes are, and those that are important to us ought to be honored in a special way. And choosing the name Freddie Munnings was a fitting tribute to this great Bahamian.
Thank you very much.